The forgotten genius who invented the safety pin, and so much more. Walter Hunt's untold story. You've probably used a safety pin at least once in your life. Maybe to fix a shirt button, or hold together a torn seam in a rush. It's simple, elegant, reliable. But have you ever wondered who invented it? Chances are, you've never heard his name. Because the man who invented the modern safety pin, along with dozens of other revolutionary tools, died broke and forgotten. His name? Walter Hunt. A mechanical genius. A man who changed the world, but never got the credit. Walter Hunt was born in 1796, on a small farm in Lewis County, New York. The eldest of 13 children, he grew up with little money and even less formal education. He left school in his early teens and trained as a stonemason. But even as a teenager, Walter had something no school could teach, a mind built for invention. He began tinkering with machines at a textile mill where his relatives worked. There, he helped improve a flax spinning device, but when the patent was filed, his name was left off. He didn't complain. Instead, he invented an even better version, and received his first patent in 1826. Walter Hunt's life became a pattern: see a problem, invent a solution, sell the idea for pennies, move on. In 1827, after witnessing a young girl struck by a horse carriage, Hunt created a foot-operated gong that allowed carriage drivers to warn pedestrians while keeping both hands on the reins. It was ingenious, practical, ahead of its time. But as always, Hunt couldn't find investors. So he sold the patent. This cycle repeated over and over. Brilliant invention. No long-term reward. Just enough cash to support his family and get to work on the next idea. In 1849, Hunt found himself in debt, again. He owed a man $15, and he didn't have the money. So he did what he always did: he sat down at a desk, grabbed a spool of wire, and started to think. 3 hours later, he had invented the modern safety pin, complete with a coiled spring and clasp to protect the user from being pricked. It was a huge improvement over the crude pins used since ancient times. And it was cheap to produce. But instead of capitalizing on it, Hunt sold the patent for $400, about $11,000 in today's money, to pay his debt. The company that bought it, W.R. Grace & Co., made millions. You've probably heard of the Winchester repeating rifle, an icon of the American frontier and a weapon that shaped the Civil War. Well, guess who laid the foundation for it? Walter Hunt. In the 1840s, Hunt designed the world's first repeating rifle, called the volitional repeating rifle. It used a tubular magazine and a lever-action mechanism, allowing multiple bullets to be loaded and fired without reloading each time. It was decades ahead of its time. But, true to form, Hunt sold the patent to a businessman named George Arrowsmith, who later passed it to Horace Smith, Daniel B. Wesson, and Benjamin Tyler Henry. That's right, Smith and Wesson and Henry. These men improved Hunt's design, and in 1860 released the Henry rifle, a weapon capable of firing 16 shots without reloading. It gave Union soldiers a massive edge during the Civil War. Later, the Winchester repeater was developed from the Henry, becoming one of the most famous firearms in history. And Hunt? He received no recognition, no royalties. He was written out of the history books, while others got rich from his ingenuity. Another of Hunt's groundbreaking inventions came in 1833, when he created the first commercially viable lock-stitch sewing machine. It was the kind of invention that could have made him a millionaire. But Hunt chose not to patent it. Why? He feared it would take away jobs from seamstresses, many of whom were poor women relying on hand sewing for income. He sold the design quietly. Years later, Elias Howe independently created a nearly identical sewing machine, and patented it. Soon after, Singer and other manufacturers began selling their own versions. A fierce legal battle broke out. Howe sued for patent infringement. And then, someone brought up Hunt's original design. Suddenly, manufacturers claimed Howe's patent was invalid, because Hunt had done it first. Hunt re-entered the scene, applied for a new improvement patent, and finally won a settlement from Singer in 1858. They agreed to pay him $50,000, over $1.4 million today. But in a cruel twist of fate, Hunt died of pneumonia before the payment was made. His family, thankfully, still received the money. Over the course of his life, Walter Hunt patented or designed more than 24 inventions, including the safety pin, the lock-stitch sewing machine, the repeating rifle, a rope-making machine, a nail-producing machine, a coal-heated oven, a fountain pen, a portable knife sharpener, an improved oil lamp, and even a device that let circus performers walk on the ceiling, called the Antipodean apparatus. He never stopped inventing. But he also never stopped selling his ideas too soon, usually for a few $100s. Not because he lacked vision, but because he needed to feed his family, and perhaps because he believed he'd just invent something better next time. Walter Hunt died in 1859, largely unknown to the public. He's buried in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, in the same cemetery as Elias Howe. Fittingly, Howe's grave is marked with a towering monument. Hunt's? A modest stone, tucked quietly among the trees. He never craved fame. He never built an empire. But he did something far greater. He left behind a world that works better, safer, and faster, thanks to his brilliant, forgotten mind. What do you think about Walter Hunt's story? Would you sell your ideas for quick cash, or hold out for legacy and riches? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of the world's forgotten geniuses.